welcome to Old Roommates. Today on the show, we are revisiting Romeo and Juliet from 1996 by William Shakespeare, right? So it's William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. I want to put that in there before Brian corrects me.
That's right.
So grab yourself a vial of poison, but don't take it just yet. Listen to our episode first before deciding. The show is about to begin.
Hey, welcome everyone to Old Roommates, the only podcast that revisits pop culture through a middle-aged lens. This is Brian.
And this is Christina.
I'm just going to close this door a little bit more. And today, we are talking about William Shakespeare. You know what I thought you were going to do, Christina? I thought you were going to be like, from William Shakespeare? Like, I thought you were going to mispronounce it on purpose. William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, directed by Baz Luhrmann. The screenplay is by Baz Luhrmann and Craig Pierce. We begin, as we always do, by talking about then. Christina, please share with us the first time you saw William Shakespeare's Romeo plus Juliet.
Help me, people. Please, help me. Thank you for asking.
Oh, sure.
The first and only time was in the movie theater. I watched this movie in the theater, and I just have to be honest with you. I did not like this movie when I first saw it. Because? To me, it was a lot. It was a lot of noise. It was a lot of chaos. I did not like Leonardo DiCaprio in it. I felt like he was just a little too over enthusiastic at times. A little bit like puppy dog ish. I just didn't like it. I didn't like him. I did not like Clare in it. I thought she was sort of sleepwalking through the whole thing. And I felt like the chaos and the noise was unbearable.
Did you like it?
I loved it. Just kidding. No, I really didn't like it. I left the movie theater. I think I had a headache. I was like, oh, Maran, as you would say. And I just did not.
Imagine if, like, we, on the movie posters, like, you had, like, the bad reviews. Like I said, I left the theater with a headache. Christina Walsh, Old Roommates.
Well, it was Ransom back then.
Ransom, yeah.
But, I did not enjoy this movie. I didn't like it. And to be honest, the whole using the actual verse of William Shakespeare was difficult to follow back then. Mm-hmm. And I just did not enjoy it. I tried. I had an open mind going in there, and I was like, oh, I can't.
A bit of an experiment, but for you, it failed.
It failed for me back then, yes. How about you, Brian? What did you think of it the first time you saw it?
Here's the scoop with Baz Luhrmann and myself. I really always struggle the first 25, 30 minutes of any Baz Luhrmann production. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's sensory overload. It's all too much. This was not, and I include Moulin Rouge in that. I think the first 20-ish minutes of Moulin Rouge is terrible. Mm-hmm. It's way too many characters, way too much yelling, way too much spastic behavior.
Yes.
And quick cuts and all this, like, it's just too much. And I understand he's trying to bring us into a new world. And sure, same with Romeo and Juliet. I'm sorry, William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. So basically...
You can just say Romeo and Juliet. We all know what it is now.
So I also saw this, not that it's a competition, but I also saw this in the movie theater.
We didn't see it together.
No, we didn't. I don't think we did.
I don't remember who I saw it with.
But I'm telling you, everything before they see each other through the fish tank is just noise to me. Mm-hmm. It's too much. It's too much yelling and extreme close-ups and guns and freeze frames and here's the cast and franticness. It was just too much for me then. I will say back then, I remember the Screamer, the newsletter you had. So I remember writing a review for Romeo and Juliet.
Oh my God.
And
let's give the listeners a little background. So Brian and I used to work at a company together.
Yeah.
And I believe it was my idea to do the Screamer. We would do reviews, and one of the goals, actually my goal was to write an outline of this new newsletter. Yeah. And I think within a month it was like the first episode was out, like the first issue was out. But it was a newsletter, like a department newsletter. Yeah. And we had all of the, employees contribute. Yeah. And yours was a
movie reviews.
Believe it or not, a movie review.
And I
edited it. How weird. We are full circle.
You did a lot, yeah.
We are full circle now. I'm editing this podcast and we're reviewing. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy.
I did come up with the face. Remember the open
Yes! Oh my gosh, that was the best. Yeah.
But I will say this. So I remember writing that this was Leonardo DiCaprio's best work, and I even think I meant that over Gilbert Grape.
Wow.
Because I think like with Gilbert Grape, he just has to sort of lock in on the tone, the voice, the mannerisms. Whereas this, I found I thought he was kind of perfectly cast as Romeo. But I remember really loving him. I did like Clare Danes. She's not my first choice for anything, but I think I thought she was very good.
Sorry, Claire, if you're listening.
I don't know.
Wow.
She always seems a little theater to me, which is why I thought she was perfect in this. A lot of interesting acting choices. I did think it was such a risk to use the original prose and all of that. But I will say I left the theater liking it, not loving it at all, but liking it. I think there are certain scenes that the movie does very, very well. But unfortunately, you have to really get through that first 25 minutes of, wow, is this rough? And so that was just my take then. But should we jump into now?
Yeah, let's jump
When
into
did you
now.
rewatch this?
So I had to actually rewatch it in parts.
Oh.
Simply because it was a time issue. It wasn't because I wasn't enjoying it. So I watched it. It was during the week last week. And I will say, so I'm gonna say something.
Oh no, a disclaimer?
No, it's not a disclaimer. It's a precursor?
You want to preface this?
I don't know. I'm going to edit all this right now. So I am going to say something that made a difference in my viewing. I feel like it made a difference in my viewing of this movie this time around. Okay. I want to say about 6 months ago, my friend Lauren, who is actually a pretty strong fan of this podcast, so hopefully she's listening to this.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren. And thank you, Lauren. Her daughter, Lila, was in a play, a musical, about 6 months ago, and we went to see it. It was William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Okay.
And it was a musical. And I had no idea what to expect. Yeah. I've never been a William Shakespeare fan, per se. I don't know a lot. I mean, I know the basics, okay? Sure. Actually, Emily had done a report on William Shakespeare a few years back, so I learned a lot about him then. But I'm not someone who read a lot of Shakespeare. In fact, Romeo and Juliet, I would be more of a West Side Story fan.
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had watched this play, and it was so interesting. It was the same idea as this Romeo and Juliet, where it was the same prose. It was the exact same script. However, this was set in a high school. Oh, okay. And it was a musical. And the music numbers were all 80s tunes. All 80s, like girls just want to have fun. And just a bunch of, it was super fun. Yeah. Super fun. It moved the story along. And I think just by watching that about 6 months ago, it helped me appreciate this more. Because I think my eyes were opened a little bit more to it. And I truly enjoyed that Midsummer Night's Dream. Not just because of the 80s tunes, but just the whole thing was really, really great the way they did it. And they were super talented. Lila is amazing. She's a great actress, awesome singer, everything, right? So anyway, moving forward, I watched this last week, and I didn't have a whole lot of expectation of it, of course, because of the way I felt about it originally. And I will say, I agree with you with this Baz Luhrmann situation, with the chaos and all that kind of stuff. And I started watching it, and I'm like, oh, God, it's exactly how I remember it to be.
Oh.
However, I appreciated a lot about it.
Okay.
I appreciated how, I missed a lot of, like, the subtle things that they added. The fact that the guns were like sword brand, things like that. What I really appreciated was the narration being like news reports.
Yes. Yeah.
And I had such a deeper appreciation of it. I still felt like that first 20 minutes was complete chaos and loud, and it was almost giving me a headache. And I'm like thinking to myself, I hope I'm wrong, but I hope that it mellows out after this. Yeah. I didn't have a memory of that. Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, I mean, that was my initial thought, was I started to have a much bigger appreciation of it. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of notes on this, so why don't you...
Oh, wow, Christina.
This is probably the most notes I made. Well, maybe not the most, but definitely up there. It's like three and a half pages of notes.
Oh, this is exciting.
So... Brian, why don't you hop in and tell me your initial thoughts about the revisit?
My very first note is I keep having to turn the volume down. Mm-hmm. It really does. Guys, if you rewatch this, it's on HBO Max right now.
Yes.
As of this moment. But I just want to keep turning the volume down. It's just too much, too loud, too crazy. And also, just some of it is just, dumb. Like the Jamie Kennedy character... And the woman's hitting him with the purse in the head.
Yes,
but it's but then there's the music's all heightened and people are yelling.
Yeah.
But nothing is happening. Mm-hmm. Nothing really happens. And so it's oh, Maran, I get it. I think, but that was my very first note. And then truly, I didn't, and I did write, now being older, rewatching this, it's I do feel, this may be incorrect, but that all of these things, all of the quick edits, the title cards on screen within the middle of the movie, during the movie and all these things are just distractions to, I think, maybe break up that you're listening to Shakespeare.
Sure, I could see that.
That it's they're trying so hard to make it contemporary and modern, and I think some of the actors do it. That's my consistent note here is I think a lot of the acting is really strong.
I agree.
Paul Sorvino, Juliet's father, I think is
so good,
incredible. Leonardo DiCaprio, I loved. Clare Danes, I loved. I loved Romeo's friend, not Mercutio. Where is it? I wrote it down. Benvolio. Benvolio.
Is he the one that
the redhead
told him? Oh, the redhead.
He was great. I think he really...
He was my least favorite character.
Really?
Yeah.
My least was Mercutio.
I loved Mercutio.
Cut it out. All right, we'll get to it. But yeah, so I just a lot of performance notes. I did write down Leonardo's. I think has a few. That whole thing. That song "Kissing You," "I'm Kissing You" by Desiree, and she's in the movie. And it's so beautiful.
It is.
Paul Rudd shows up, and I don't think he has 2 lines of dialogue, but it's just very, very fun, romantic, lovely. And then later on, he says, "Did my heart love till now? For swear its sight, for I never saw true beauty till this night." And then what light through yonder window breaks, it is the east, and Juliet is the sun. And I was like, oh. I think Leonardo is really good in this. And I did feel that way, though, back then as well. Mm-hmm. But it was to watch it now and seeing how much stuff he's done since then, going back to that, it's no, I mean, he was really strong in this, I felt.
And how old was he in this? Because he seemed very young, but I think he always seemed young.
So I think Leonardo is 48 right now. This movie is...
It was 96.
So 06, 16, 17... So he's 21?
21.
Yeah. 21. In fact, really quick note, Natalie Portman made it to rehearsals as Juliet, but she was only 14 at the time, and it felt very problematic. I think Clare Danes is 17 in this at the time of filming. Leonardo was 21.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Watching it with different eyes and through a middle-aged lens, I have to say I liked it a lot more. I I might even say I loved it.
Wow.
In fact, this may be, you were talking about this with Frisky Business.
Yeah.
This may be my favorite, like, revisit, change of opinion revisit,
yes.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I agree about the acting.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was super strong.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really liked Leonardo this time around.
Yeah.
I did think he was really good. I still felt a couple of times he was a little bit cringy with the, oh, I'm so enthusiastic about loving you.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff still kind of made me a little bit cringy. Someone I really loved this time around was Clare Danes.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was perfect. Whereas before I felt like she was so just like sleepwalking through the whole thing, as I mentioned. This time I felt like she was a perfectly cast Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
So innocent, so beautiful. She's so pretty in this. I never, no offense to Clare Danes, but I never felt like she was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like she was pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But something about like the lack of makeup.
Yes, that's what I was going to say that.
Right?
Yeah.
She has like no makeup on. Well, she probably has some makeup on.
right.
But it feels like she has no makeup on.
Mm-hmm.
Her hair is just
straight.
Straight, not done up.
Yeah.
And she is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
I felt like her acting was very, very strong. And what did you say at the beginning with the chaos and the fun? Mm-hmm. I felt like at the beginning, and I think it mellows out throughout. You were talking about like the woman hitting him with the purse and all these like goofy things.
Yes.
Like I felt like I could have done without the goofiness.
Yes. Yeah.
That wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really appreciated it. And then John, I always say his name wrong. Leguizamo.
Yeah.
He shows up, and I was floored. I'm like, holy shit, this guy is
excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's
he
really
is
good.
so awesome and terrifying and strong. He might be my favorite performance in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Paul Sorvino's great too.
Yeah.
But he just makes, every time he steps on the screen, he just blew me away.
Well, because he feels dangerous.
He's so dangerous.
Yeah.
And you know what's really funny about that? That first whatever montage or whatever you want to call it at the gas station, when you have the Capulets, the Montagues, the gang, right? And they're all a bit goofy.
Yes.
And then the Capulets show up, and they're super scary.
Sleek and all in black.
Didn't it remind you a little bit of Grease? With like the T-Birds and the Scorpions.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
right? Because the T-Birds is so goofy, and like even at the point where in Greece he's like, they want to rumble, and he has a squirt gun, and then the Scorpions show up, and they're so scary with the scary
and the
like
slicked hair and
oh my God. But I got that vibe. I'm like, wow, these guys are really dangerous, and these other guys, the Montagues, have no chance.
Well, you meet the Montagues, and one of them he already has a black eye, so clearly he's been beat up.
Right.
Then one of them is like sunburnt. He has like the straps where like his like wife beater T-shirt was on.
Yes.
Like
yes.
they all just like beat up and worn out and like. And it is funny because it's like, this is a losing game.
No chance.
And
about the volume too, which is one comment.
Yeah.
I found myself turning it down, and then during the Romeo and Juliet parts, I'm like, turn it up so I can hear them. Or the priest, more so when he's talking to the priest, I'm like, what is he saying?
The same.
Same
note.
They need some sort of
sound editing. There's so much. There's so much yelling. Like the nurse, they call her nurse, but I think she's like the nurse / maid. Juliet's mom, who I actually did like in this. Romeo's friends, and Mercutio. So much yelling. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I was like, I really kept having to turn it down. So my next note is about Mercutio.
Okay.
So here's the thing. You mentioned Leonardo kind of overdoing it at times. I thought this whole performance was overdoing it. Mercutio. First of all, he's supposed to be Romeo's best friend. I didn't feel that. In fact, when he died and Romeo is reacting to his death, I I was like, wait, are they supposed to be better, like really good friends? I just thought it was, every line was drawn out. Every line was like over the top, super theatrical, even for being theatrical.
Right.
And it's unfortunate too, because like the suggestion is he's gay.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, besides the drag, which the drag you can't even, I guess, really consider because he's in a show that night. That's why he's dressed that way. But there's a lot of comments like, are you consorting with Romeo, which means are you romantically involved with him? Mercutio talks about never, I don't know, bending to a man's pleasure or something like that.
There's a lot of like
blow,
sex jokes. Sure.
Innuendo.
But this is written by William Shakespeare. Like this
1,000%. Yeah. And I understand that. I guess what I mean is the performance of it is just so much that you wonder why they're friends. I guess I didn't understand their friendship, and I didn't understand why he was so loud every time he said a line. I don't think it's a great performance. I think it's the when he's performing in the party, super fun, really energetic and all that, because it makes sense. But just be that way. I needed a break. Yeah.
I liked him. I thought he was a breath of fresh air, to be honest.
Okay.
Because there was so much violence. There was so much talk about shooting and death and hating and da-da-da. By the time he shows up, like, yes, he's dressed in his drag for the show. He was just sort of a breath of fresh air for me. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, look at him. He's great. And he seemed positive. Like, he seemed like more of like a positive vibe to me than all of this just hating and fighting and all that kind of stuff. I agree with you. It didn't feel like they were best friends.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have worked on that a little bit more. But I think that they made him over the top because he was supposed to be gay, to be quite honest. Like, I think that they were trying to accentuate the fact that he was gay.
Yeah.
And, starting, of course, with, like, the drag stuff.
Right.
I kind of had wished he continued in the drag, to be honest. I think it would have been more effective, but they didn't, and that's just was a choice that they made. But I enjoyed him. I thought he was great. In fact, you know what's really funny? Every time he was on screen, I'm like, who does he remind me of? Who does he remind me of? Chris Rock.
1,000%.
Right? And I think that made it better for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, he like just reminds me of Chris Rock. He looks like him.
He does, yeah, especially in the close-ups.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when he's saying his lines, it just made it funny for me. Even when he wasn't trying to be funny. But it just seemed funny and just a nice break from all of the heavy-duty violence stuff.
I like your explanation of it better than what I saw. I will say, I'm certain Baz Luhrmann was like, more, over the top, more, be flamboyant, go crazy. I'm sure this was not this actor making these choices.
Correct.
I just can't imagine that. But, and so I don't really fault the actor, but I do think it's just a lot because I wanted it to feel more cohesive within the group. I think you can still be the loudest person in the group, but you still have to feel like the group. And I just didn't feel it.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a point where he has a monologue and they're just telling him to calm down. And it's like, I don't know. I something about it didn't, And also maybe there's some like a little bit of that thing where because he is gay, or at least being portrayed to be gay, that it's almost like a little disheartening because it's like, do they have to make him that plain? Like, do they make him that over the top?
But I think everybody else is over the top in their personalities. So it wouldn't make sense for the person who is gay not to be over the top in his personality. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like you don't want them to be understated because that's not showing respect to the actual character.
But I think that's also assuming that gay guys are over the top within the group anyway. I don't know.
No, but I don't think he was in comparison to the group.
I think he was.
They're all completely crazy. Even his parents, her parents, every single character is over the top.
Fine. You know what? Fine. Is that what you want me to say, Christina?
Yes. I want you to say 1,000%.
I refuse. Juliet's father, at one point, when his wife. So I don't have many notes, Christina.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't want to. I want to hear all of yours. But let me put it in perspective. My very next note is a distant later when Tybalt has died, and his aunt, Juliet's mother, is crying, and Juliet's father says, "We were born to die."
That's great.
Like,
it's a great line. That's a great line.
Yeah, but because he didn't like Tybalt anyway.
That William had a lot of talent in those lines. So I'm going to back up a little bit.
There, yeah.
Unless, I'm sorry, were you finished with your thought?
Oh no, but my point is that Juliet's father, Paul Sorvino, played by Paul Sorvino, he didn't like Tybalt, and I think it's suggested. But that line, I was like, holy shit! Imagine saying to someone who's crying, who's mourning someone, it's like, we were born to die, because remember at the party, he's like, I want, he basically wants to kill. Tybalt wants to kill Romeo in front of everyone. He's like, you will not make a mutiny of my guests. Like, it's like, let it go, kid. And I think he knew that this kid could not be contained. And I think there was some relief when he realized he was dead.
Yeah, he's like, well, he knew it was going to happen.
He knew it was going to happen. Yeah.
He knew it was a matter of time.
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Absolutely.
I just made that up.
That's pretty
I'm
good.
a regular.
You should be a playwright.
I'm a regular William Shakespeare. Christina?
So I'm going to back it up.
Yeah, please.
I loved how everything is so chaotic, and then all of a sudden it's complete silence when Romeo and Juliet meet. Mm-hmm. That scene when they first meet is so beautiful with the fish tank.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. And I loved how he sees her eye. It's like, oh my gosh. Everything about that was absolutely gorgeous. And you were right. You said it earlier with the song playing. And then they leave and they're trying to find each other. And then she has to dance with Paul Rudd. And he's following her around. I just fell right into that. It was so adorable.
Beautiful.
So beautiful. The song.
That song is a gorgeous song.
Everything about that scene was absolutely beautiful. I did think it was funny that he tried to kiss her immediately.
So that brings up a negative for me. I didn't mind that. I didn't like the pool. I didn't like the pool scene. I thought he was a little too aggressive. And remembering, I don't know if this... didn't catch any dialogue, but Juliet is only supposed to be like 14 years old. I don't know if that's the case in this movie, but he is, you do understand that Romeo is, you feel that Romeo is a little older than her, but it's still, even with the casting of, say, Clare Danes versus Natalie Portman, it's still a little too aggressive for me.
It was very aggressive.
Through my middle-aged
Yes,
lens.
agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah.
I 1,000% agree. I thought he was very pushy, very aggressive. And this is part of what I didn't like about whether it was the direction or his performance. This whole, like, I gotta have you. Yes. It seemed very sexual.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. It made it feel icky. I did like how he said, and I might have this wrong, I just kind of jotted it down, "Will you leave me so unsatisfied?" And then she says, "What are you expecting?"
Basically, yeah.
And so, and I liked how she called him out on it. And again, this is all William Shakespeare. It's not anything new.
Not even 24 hours. This is the same night.
It's the same
night. He's still wearing his
costume.
So
she's assuming, like we are assuming, that he is just interested in sex. And then he says something about a vow of marriage. And I'm like, and she's like, "Oh, okay." And she just like jumps back in the pool with him or something. And I liked that because we were all thinking the same thing. Like, what are you doing? You try to kiss her and like literally haven't even said a word to each other.
Yeah, that's right.
Or maybe one word. And then they kiss, or he kisses her, and then he stalks her. Like in this day and age, not great. But then, yes, being so almost sexual about it. But then you find out it's not. It's just his heart is overwhelmed with love.
Yeah.
So, and he really wants to marry her. He doesn't necessarily want to have sex with her.
He has a great line about that he would die because he would rather just die now than dying slowly, longing for her vow or longing for her love. It also does a good thing where I read that in the play, I've read some Shakespeare, Taming of the Shrew and a couple others, but in Romeo and Juliet, it never mentions balcony. And so that whole thing of Juliet being Romeo, where art thou? And he's like climbing the thing, like it mentions a window. And so the fact that she says it, when she says the wherefore art thou, she's already on the ground level while he's on the thing. So it's pretty, I mean, I liked that I really actually preferred that than like the grand balcony thing. It felt more realistic.
Yes, and what else I liked is the way they delivered their lines. It wasn't this theatrical Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo. Like it wasn't like that. It was like, wherefore art thou, Romeo?
Yeah.
It was so much more relatable.
Yeah.
The way they were casually speaking in this type of words, these types of words. It was great. I did like the pool, how they fell in. And again, it was very beautiful the way it was filmed under the water. And it was nice and calm amidst all the chaos.
Every time they're together, that's the note I have. The only quiet moments are really when they're together.
And it's so welcome and so needed. So yes, I really appreciated all of that. I did write that Leo is a bit too enthusiastic still at times. Love does not, what did I write? Love does not lie in their hearts, but in their... Oh, I remember this. The way it was delivered was funny. I forget who said it. But love does not lie in their hearts, but in their eyes. But they were... It might have been Mercutio. I can't say the words. But it was funny because, again, it was... indicating that it was just about sex. It might have been at Paris. I can't remember who said it. But it was trying to say that, no, this isn't about sex. This is about love. Okay, so what else? So much gunplay. I loved the When Doves Cry.
Funny, I didn't like that.
Interesting.
And I forgot it even happened. Like, I forgot that. It was like, oh my God, I forgot that they had the kids singing and stuff. And it felt very Moulin Rouge, like Moulin Rouge, just very similar stuff to that. And but something about it this time around, I didn't like that it was so recognizable. I think the Everybody's Free to Feel Good I liked more. The When Doves Cry, because it's from another movie. It's such a well-known song that I didn't like it as much as I liked the other one.
Yeah, I did like it. I did like it. Not as much as the other one. I agree.
Yeah,
but I did like it. What else? Oh, when they got married, I just said that they look like a couple of kids.
Totally.
Right? They look like a couple of young kids pretending to get married, walking down the aisle. I thought that was really interesting.
Yep. I wrote, there's a whole monologue Juliet has about how bored she is waiting for Romeo. But she decides, and this is a negative, to take the potion in a split second. Like, this very experimental potion, you will be basically dead as far as anyone is concerned. You'll come back later. Okay. But, like, I actually wanted there to be a moment. She does go to her altar in her room, and she says, whatever, I hope I'm doing the right thing. It's maybe 10 seconds.
Yes.
And I just felt like maybe having her be a little more contemplative before taking this deadly, faux deadly potion, you know? Yes.
But, I mean, I guess she just really believed the priest.
Yeah, and that's true. And she was a kid.
People do that.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, my problem with this, and of course it's the script, so I'm not going to try to rewrite William Shakespeare. Don't worry, people. But I did say it was a good plan. It was a good plan, but maybe tell Romeo first, like before taking the drug. Like, let him know that this is going to happen.
Well, the priest sent him that thing.
Right, but he didn't. Like, he sent it after. Like, it just. Obviously, it was too late when he sent it. Yeah. Obviously, because Romeo did not get the message.
Right.
Did not get the memo.
Yeah.
But maybe just let him know beforehand. And then say, like, this is our plan. And then have it happen.
Yeah.
So, of course, that wouldn't be Romeo and Juliet anymore.
Right. And also, they're kids.
They are children. They are children.
They were...
Oh my gosh, and speaking of children, I have to tell you this. This is actually really funny. So, like I said, I watched it in 2 parts.
Yeah.
So, the first part was, I don't know, I think it was probably like a Tuesday afternoon or something like that before I had to pick Emily up.
Yeah.
And so, I watched it. I get in the car, I pick Emily up, and we're like driving. And I'm like, Emily, I watched, I just started watching, so here's the thing. I started watching it and I was so impressed with it. Like, I was actually disappointed that I had to shut it off. Okay. Because I really wanted to continue watching it, which was surprising considering how much I hated it before. Mm-hmm. So I was excited about it and everything else. And I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, I bet Emily would really like this because it's really cool. Mm-hmm. It's theatrical, but it's also, it's just very cool. And she had watched A Midsummer Night's Dream play with me beforehand and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, I pick her up and I'm like, oh, Emily, I'm like, I have to tell you, I'm like, I have this movie that I think that you'd really like. It was Romeo and Juliet from 1996, Mm-hmm. And she stops in her tracks and she's like, what? And I'm like, what? She's like, are you serious? And I'm like, Jesus, what did I say? You never know with a 14-year-old, right? I'm like, is she mad at me? Does she like me? I don't know. She goes, Mom, we watched that in ELA today.
What? Oh my God, that's wild.
It's not so funny. Obviously,
so
not
funny.
the whole thing was like the first act.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what? She's like, yes. I'm like, today you watched the 1990s? I'm like, with Leonardo DiCaprio? She goes, yes. She goes, we've been reading it. And so Sean, her teacher, put it on for them to watch like the first act.
That's a cool teacher.
Yeah, oh, he's great. Yeah, he's awesome. So, it was so funny. Are you serious? Like, we were watching it basically at the same time. So
that is so bizarre.
So bizarre.
Oh my God.
So anyway, let's throw that in there. But anyway, yes, they were just kids. What else? Oh, we didn't talk about Mercutio's. I can't say that his name. I'm sorry. I'm gonna call it M.
Yeah.
M's death.
Yeah.
That part, I think, was Leo's strongest part of this whole movie. I was almost moved to tears.
I thought some of his best work was right after that, when he kills people.
Yes, that's what I mean. When he's screaming and he shoots, and then he's like shocked that he shot him, and it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the camera stays on him for a long time, and he's like, I just fucked my life.
That's exactly the part.
He fucked his life up. He fucked his love story up. All of it just was ruined in a moment of anger. Yes.
That final explosion was awesome. It was so powerful. I mean, he was awesome. Awesome.
Really quick, the scene where Mercutio is murdered, slashed with the glass.
Yes.
That behind him, remember, it's really stormy, and you see these clouds literally rolling in. Yeah. That was real. That was not CGI.
Gosh.
There's a hurricane coming, and Baz Luhrmann knew it's going to destroy our sets. So let's just go there. All the actors were super game. They're like, let's do it. And they're filming it really fast. They did have to go back for close-ups and just have wind fans and stuff to keep it consistent. But those wide shots, that was real.
Wow,
with those
that's
clouds
so cool.
Coming in. Yeah,
that's very cool.
A hurricane. Clare Danes with The Ugly Cry. I feel that many actresses would not have allowed themselves to be that vulnerable. Because she was making some facial expressions.
Yes.
Like that ugly cry that is like, it's very real, and I don't see a lot of it in movies nowadays.
No, not at all. It reminded me of the scenes where it reminds me of Stepmom, when she's waking up and she's like has this beautiful smile on her face, and you're like, people don't wake up that way,
but people cry like this.
People cry like this. I made a note as well. I thought it was really, really great. I loved how she played this role. I thought she did excellent. The fight with the father was a little bit over the top, but he was so scary.
I agree. It was like a snap. It was like he throws the wife, he pushes her down, he pushes the maid or the nurse, and it's I mean it was for me. I liked it in the sense of he just seemed like that kind of guy anyway. Like he was very big, very bolsterous. But it was like to be physically violent. I mean, but this is I don't know.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
I said the father is a tad unreasonable.
I think I was more surprised he shoved his wife than when he sort of like, yelled and screamed at Juliet.
To say she cannot live with him, she has to live on the streets.
Yeah.
If she doesn't marry Paul Rudd's character.
Yeah, right.
Because of a business dealing. I mean, that was a bit.
Yep.
Yeah, not nice. So she takes the poison. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, good.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up to where we were.
Oh, yeah.
So she takes the poison. I said it was a good plan, but maybe tell Romeo first. And then they pan to what I can only describe as Jack Dawson in the desert.
Right. I know what you're talking about with the hair and all that.
The hair.
Yeah.
He's writing. He's looking up from his hair.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's Jack Dawson. It's 1,000%. And for those of you who do understand who that is, that's Jack Dawson from the Titanic, right? From Titanic?
Yeah. The, oh shit, we just said something right before that, and I forgot my train of thought.
Maybe tell Romeo?
Oh yeah, you wondered why the priest wasn't like, oh shit, they keep sending this envelope back to me. Maybe I should go to the church and just check in on Juliet and be there for if Romeo shows up.
Right.
Right? I mean, that would have been a good one too. That would have been more realistic for that sort of.
Yeah, maybe just be there and let him know.
Because poor Juliet, what if she didn't snap out of it? Mm-hmm. Honestly, my last note is my last note of the movie, which is like the policeman or the chief says, "All are punished. All are punished." Like it was like, oh my god! Again, the yelling. It's
he was
in
a lot.
In case we didn't hear you,
right?
Like we heard you loud and clear the first time.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's necessary. I think it's like the material is compelling enough. I don't know if the shouting.
Yeah, and again, it might have been a direction.
I'm sure it was.
I'm sure it was too. But I also felt like some of, not necessarily the main characters, but some of the more minor characters took the fact that they were reciting Shakespeare a bit too seriously.
Excellent note.
Yes.
And yes, but
and
that's
that
when
he
the
was one of
director,
them.
right? And that was when the director should have stepped in and said, "This is cinema, not staged."
Yes.
And we have microphones everywhere, so we're going to hear you.
Right. Exactly. So it's like, oh, I'm doing Shakespeare. I must speak this way. So I said there was so much chaos with the police. When he shows, goes to find Juliet.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he wants to die. Why not let the police just kill him?
Oh, that's interesting.
Like they're shooting at him, and he's.
Well, he doesn't know. He's heard this.
Right. So he wants to make sure.
He wants to see.
True.
Beautifully shot though when he opens the church and all the lights leading up to
gorgeous.
And all the lit candles.
My gosh, I have that candles exclamation
point.
Good
thing she didn't toss and turn or sleep. She would have set herself on fire. There were so many candles, and at one point I was like, that candle's really close to her dress.
Yes,
but that's a middle-aged lens.
I thought that Claire played dead really well.
Yeah.
I thought she did great. I was like looking. I was searching.
Yep.
And I loved how they played it out too, where you see a little bit of a flicker.
The finger
and
move.
The finger.
Yeah.
And you really are going, wake up. Like, touch him. Turn. Like, you know how it's all going to end.
Well, I think, right. I know, it's so funny. I know,
but you're like, maybe?
I've seen this before.
Just see it,
right.
yeah.
But it's funny. I was like, wait, but I did forget how animated she became. And so, but I think it's like, but his grief, he was like inconsolable. So he wouldn't even have realized like that she was even trying to touch him. But
it was very heartbreaking now.
Any other notes? I'm sure any of more.
I
have some trivia.
My only other note was, I loved that, after they're dead, you see them, in each other's arms, surrounded by the candles. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the flashbacks.
Me neither. It wasn't necessary.
I just said, are the flashbacks necessary?
It's like this movie, I know it's 2 hours long, but remember, they met 30 minutes in. So it's like, guess what? I remembered their 5 scenes together in 90 minutes.
And it almost did the relationship a disservice. Mm-hmm. Because it reminds you that they only had like 3 interactions.
That's what I just said. Yeah, it's like maybe, it's like, and a lot of it is like kissing. So it's like they
Yes.
didn't, not having like very deep
So
conversations.
you're like, maybe they shouldn't have killed each other for each other. You should have like killed themselves for each other.
Oh, young love.
So, and I really felt like it would have been a nicer ending if it just ended there and not with the police officers. But you had to, because that's how the play went.
But I liked it. I didn't like the yelling of the police officer, but I liked that the fathers now have dead children because they couldn't get along.
But do you think that's going to change anything?
No.
No, of course not. And then,
if anything, the mothers. I think the mothers would step in and be like, because I mean, it's funny. I feel like Romeo's mother, who we did not see a lot of, she seemed much more level-headed than the father.
Anybody would seem more level-headed than the father.
Let's see. So my note. Oh, so the big. I think I know your answer, Christina. Yeah. More or less, or about the same. Obviously,
definitely more for me.
Yeah, more for me as well, but slightly. I said, thanks to the volume button on my remote control. Like, I enjoyed this much more, and I also enjoyed. I do think Benvolio. His name's Dash Mihawk is the actor's name.
Oh, yes.
I actually really liked him in this. And I think, because I felt that he, more so than a lot of the other actors, were trying hard to make it feel contemporary. Mm-hmm. And I liked that. I thought Leo was great, Claire, Paul Sorvino, and John Leguizamo. They all really tried to just sit, like you're saying about the swimming pool, like trying to make it sound like things people would say nowadays. That same pitch patterns and all of that, and it was very effective. I liked this more than I did before. Some trivia: the budget was $14.5 million.
Okay.
It made, this blew my mind, worldwide $147 million.
That really surprises me too. I didn't think it was a big hit.
It wasn't a big hit here. I think here in Canada, I think it made under $50 million, but I also think it was partly an Australian production, so I think it made a bit of money in Australia, but it ultimately was a huge, $14.5 million, it made 147, so.
Yeah.
The soundtrack, Christina, multi-platinum, do you remember what song is featured in that soundtrack? And I don't remember it in the movie, though. So Christina and I used to go to this place called DJ O'Donoghue's after our Monday night shifts, I believe. And we would go.
I'm trying to think. We'd do like 3 songs.
And one of I
know Spiderweb was in one.
Spiderwebs, You're My Best Friend by Queen.
Oh, yes.
And Number One Crush by Garbage.
Oh, Number One Crush. Love that song.
Well, I think that's a song on the soundtrack. And what's funny is I was playing it in the car and I'm like, I started laughing uncontrollably because like the song begins like, yeah. And then I'm like, we played this once a week at like a pub, like an Irish pub. And here come me and Christina, we're playing Romeo and Juliet soundtrack, and it's like these like it starts off with like like.
That was such a good song, though.
Like what a great song to eat buffalo wings to.
Right. Well, it was after a long night of work, so we were feeling like, maybe that's why we related to it that way.
Really quick, Leonardo won Best Actor at the Berlin Film Festival. He won Best Actor, won a blockbuster award. He also, Baz Luhrmann won Best Director at BAFTA for this movie. It only got 1 Oscar nomination for production design. That surprised me.
That is a little surprising.
No, even like as I think like, I don't know, there's a lot to like about this movie.
Yeah. That was a nomination or a win?
Nomination. I do have a match game if you're all done with
Great,
your
I have an
notes.
FMK.
Okay. Should I go first?
Sure.
All right. So
as long as you don't forget about me, which happens.
So, we've heard a lot, especially in the beginning of Romeo and Juliet, about Rosaline, Romeo's ex-girlfriend.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. Rosaline, I forgot about her.
Romeo's ex-girlfriend, Rosaline, has written a tell-all.
Oh, my gosh. I want to read it.
About her time with Romeo. Mm-hmm. Her memoir is called I Blank Romeo.
I'm gonna do it. I'm doing it. Wait, should I do it? Wait.
Yeah, I think we're looking for an exact match.
Alright.
Ding.
Ding.
Oh, ding, ding. Sorry.
It's me who's trying to
I know,
match.
I dinged before you. I'm sorry. Romeo's ex-girlfriend Rosaline wrote a tell-all. Her memoir is called I blank Romeo.
I fucketh.
Ah! I had it. I was between that and I hateth.
I almost did
Romeo.
hateth. I almost hateth.
I should have wrote fucketh.
But
oh my god.
Fucketh.
Fucketh.
So
Oh my god.
funny. Okay, and speaking of fucketh,
Yeah.
I have an FMK for
All
you.
right. Let's hear it.
Okay. So I wasn't very nice in this one.
Oh,
I will tell you.
Okay.
I've been really nice on
You have.
these lately.
You've been nice lately. Yeah.
I just wanted you to think a little bit.
All right.
All right. Your choices are
Okay.
Montague,
The father. Okay.
who was played by Brian Dennehy.
Dennehy. Yeah.
We didn't really talk too much about, but he was good too.
He's barely in it.
He wasn't in that much. Capulet, Paul Sorvino.
Okay.
And Friar Lawrence. But I'm going to put a little asterisk next to Friar Lawrence.
Okay.
We'll just call him a minister who is allowed to have a marriage.
Galatians. Okay.
So as a priest, obviously, it would
That
be
actor's name is Pete Postlethwaite.
something like that. Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna need a minute.
Yeah, I would say so.
This is
But he's a minister, though. Remember.
Oh boy, this sucks.
It's not that difficult if you think about it.
All right, ding.
Okay. So who do we have?
As good as he was, I'm killing Capulet. I'm killing Paul Sorvino.
Yeah.
I am effing Friar Lawrence.
Yep.
And I'm marrying Montague.
See, that wasn't so hard.
It wasn't
exactly
so bad.
what I thought you would do.
Is that what you would do as well?
What I would do as well, yes. I don't want Capulet around. He was a loose cannon.
And again, excellent performance, but bad.
Yeah, well,
terrible
we're not
guy.
talking about Paul
Terrible
Sorvino.
guy,
We're
I
talking
know.
about Capulet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
So that's that.
Was
That's
William
Shakespeare's
Romeo plus
Juliet.
Juliet. There's a plus sign.
Which means and.
And that's it for us and for this episode of Old Roommates.
Thank you for listening. Please remember to follow us on Instagram or YouTube, where we have our episodes as well as a little extra.
And if you have any questions about our show, any suggestions for movies we could revisit, reach out to us at oldroommatespod@gmail.com.
Thanks again for listening.
This is Brian.
And this is Christina. Until next time.